Narcissism doesn't reveal itself right away. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Narcissists wear a shiny mask at the beginning. They appear charming, confident, attentive, maybe even extraordinary. You might think, finally, someone who truly sees me. But what you're sensing isn't genuine connection. It's a carefully crafted performance. And that's where the first red flag begins. Excessive idealization. Narcissists tend to put you on a pedestal in the early phase. They shower you with compliments, attention, grand declarations. I've never met anyone like you. You're perfect. I feel like we're soulmates. At first, it feels amazing, but it all moves too fast, too intensely, too much. The goal is clear: to get you emotionally open, quickly and deeply. Why is that a problem? Because you start to feel connected before you truly know the person. This early intensity creates emotional dependency, and once you're emotionally invested, the dynamic begins to shift. That's when the second red flag usually appears: an overwhelming need for control. At first, it seems harmless. The narcissist wants to know what you're doing, who you're spending time with, what you're thinking. Initially, it's framed as caring. I just want to know how your day was. I miss you. But soon, closeness turns into control. They get jealous when you see other people. They question your decisions. You start justifying yourself for things that used to be perfectly normal. That's the trick. The control is cleverly disguised as love. You begin to feel responsible for their emotional state. And as soon as you start holding back your own needs to keep the peace, you've already crossed your first boundary. These two early warning signs, idealization and control, are the classic entry points into narcissistic behavior. They may look like affection on the surface, but in truth, they are tools of manipulation. If you can spot them early, you can protect yourself before it's too late. After being placed on a pedestal, things gradually begin to shift in a way that's hard to pin down. The tone changes. There are subtle jabs, sarcastic remarks, comments like, "You're so sensitive today," or "Relax, it was just a joke." Here comes the third red flag: gradual devaluation. What narcissists masterfully do is alternate between closeness and rejection. They give you just enough attention to keep you hooked, while constantly making you feel like you're not quite good enough. The devaluation is often subtle. They criticize your appearance, dismiss your achievements, or question your character, always in a way that makes you feel guilty for speaking up. A common reaction: you start justifying yourself. You want to make things right, even though you're not sure what you did wrong. This creates an emotional imbalance. You become the active fixer, constantly trying to restore harmony. Meanwhile, the narcissist sits back and enjoys your insecurity. The fourth red flag is especially insidious and a clear sign of narcissistic manipulation: gaslighting. At this point, it's not just your actions being criticized. Your entire perception is questioned. You raise a concern and you hear things like, "I never said that. You totally misunderstood." You always twist everything to fit your narrative. Over time, you begin to question your own reality. You wonder if you're exaggerating, if you're too sensitive, or if your memory is faulty. And that's exactly the purpose of gaslighting: to destroy your inner truth. Because once you no longer trust yourself, you become much easier to control. These phases, devaluation and psychological destabilization, are central to narcissistic relationships, and they follow a predictable cycle. First idealization, then devaluation, then erosion of your reality. Recognizing this early gives you the chance to pull away, before your sense of self is completely undermined. As the relationship with a narcissist progresses, one pattern becomes unmistakable. Everything revolves around them: their needs, their feelings, their problems. That's the fifth red flag: an extremely self-centered communication style. You'll notice this when you begin to feel invisible in conversations. You share something, but their attention drifts, or the topic is immediately redirected back to them. You achieve something, they either one-up you or downplay it. You're struggling, they either act annoyed or quickly point out that they have it even worse. Over time, this creates a deep sense of emotional isolation. You give and give, but never truly feel seen. This dynamic becomes especially noticeable during conflict. You bring up something that's bothering you, but instead of understanding, you get defensiveness, blame shifting, or complete silence. The narcissist has no real interest in your perspective. For them, it's not about connection, it's about dominance. That's why so many conversations end with the same feeling: I can say whatever I want, it doesn't matter. Another red flag at this stage: emotional blackmail. The narcissist uses your feelings against you, manipulating with guilt, fear, or loss. Statements like, "Without me, you'd be nothing. You're the problem. If you really loved me, you would." These are classic attempts at control, subtle enough that you may not even realize what's happening. What makes this dynamic so dangerous is that it's not overtly aggressive. It's a constant, quiet power shift. You adjust, you give in, you stay silent more often, and eventually you realize all your energy is going into making the relationship work. You become a background character in the narcissist movie, and only notice it once you're completely emotionally drained. This phase is critical. If you realize the relationship is permanently one-sided and your sense of self is fading, you have a chance to reclaim your center. Because true love means being seen and heard, not steamrolled. Empathy is the foundation of any healthy relationship. But this is where the sixth and perhaps clearest red flag appears. A narcissist lacks real empathy. They can fake it, sometimes very convincingly. But deep down, they're incapable of truly putting themselves in someone else's shoes. Instead, they use emotional responses strategically, as tools, not as signs of genuine connection. You notice this in certain moments. You break down emotionally, and the narcissist remains indifferent. You've had a rough day, and they get annoyed because it diverts attention away from them. Maybe you've even heard them use your vulnerability against you. You're so unstable. No wonder no one can deal with you. Narcissists can comfort, but only when it benefits them. If your pain gives them admiration, or if showing empathy creates a debt you'll later have to repay, they'll play the role. But genuine listening, real interest, deep understanding, nowhere to be found. What matters is their advantage. This lack of empathy becomes especially clear when you're facing a real problem. Instead of support, you get excuses, dismissals, or even blame. The unspoken message, "Your feelings annoy me," or "If you were stronger, you wouldn't be acting like this." And the longer you stay in this pattern, the more you begin to internalize that view of yourself. The trap is, many narcissists are socially skilled. They know how to mimic empathy, the right words, the right tone. But you feel it. It doesn't land. It doesn't warm you. It doesn't change anything, because it's just a role, a facade. If you constantly feel alone in your pain, despite being in a relationship, it's no coincidence. It's a sign, a clear one, because someone who only understands you when it benefits them isn't interested in you. They're interested in control. Now that you know the 6 most common red flags: idealization, control, devaluation, gaslighting, emotional manipulation, and lack of empathy, the big question becomes, what can you do if you think you're dealing with a narcissist? First, trust your intuition. Many people say they had a strange feeling from the very beginning, but ignored it. In toxic relationships, you're often told you're exaggerating, too sensitive, or imagining things. But the opposite is usually true. Your perception is sharp. It was just manipulated. The first step toward healing is to believe yourself again. Next, set boundaries, clearly and consistently. This doesn't mean being aggressive, it means being firm. Statements like, "I feel uncomfortable when you speak to me like that," or "I have the right to take care of myself," can be powerful. But be aware, narcissists rarely respect boundaries. They will test them, undermine them, push back. That's why it's crucial to stay firm. In many cases, a full withdrawal is necessary, especially if contact is making you emotionally unwell. This can mean ending the relationship, blocking phone numbers, avoiding social media. As harsh as that sounds, no contact is sometimes the only way to regain your peace. Narcissists rarely change, but you can, and you can reclaim your sense of self. Also, talk to people you trust. Friends, therapists, support groups. You're not alone. Many others have experienced similar things. And connecting with them not only helps you process what happened, but also rebuild your trust in yourself. Finally, recognize that this experience didn't destroy you. It taught you something about yourself, about your strength, and about what you'll never again accept. You deserve a relationship where you can grow, not just survive, where you feel safe, not small, because that's not weakness, that's self-protection. And real strength begins right there. Stay vigilant, stay wise. With love, Mental Moments.